Today we're going to start a new series. We're going to take a look at the rookies and how they did in 2022. We're going to look at the numbers. We're going to look at their player values. And then we're just going to look at everything all together and see whether they're worth buying again in Dynasty or trying to figure out some trend lines going forward or what else is happening with these players. But the first player we're going to talk about today is David Bell. He gets the spotlight. One of the trendy rookies from last year's class. He was a value wide receiver in the second round. A guy that got faded due to his combine time, due to him going in the third round. Still in a decent spot. Has a very interesting rookie season where you can really paint the chalk on both sides of the spectrum here because he has not been productive. But yet, there are some numbers that look like they are trending up, and we're going to go over those today. But first things first, let's go over the ADP here. Right now, he's the wide receiver, 65 in December ADP over at dynastyleaguefootball.com. 139th player usually off the board with a 142.75 ADP. Players in this range, usually Hunter Renfrow, Jalen Warren, Tyler Algier, Kenneth Gainwell. Zane Jones is the wide receiver. He's over. Terrace Marshall. So there's a lot of jabronis in this area. Older players or younger players who have not really done anything yet. And he's just in this area. Still just 22 years old. Just turned 22 in early December. So he's fresh. So he's still a younger player. Not an older rookie. So you got some time with him while he's incubating. Looking over his trend lines here on ADP. When we're looking at the market here. So going into the season here around July, he had a 133 ADP and then held it down with a 132 ADP in August. And then after the season, pretty much, we're almost done. Right now in December, he has a 142 ADP. So really, he's only dropped like 10 spots after getting less than 300 yards receiving on the season. I think that's pretty solid considering he's a third-round rookie who didn't do well at the combine, who's kind of stained going into rookie drafts. Did have a lot of backing there, but going on with his draft capital production, only dropping 10 spots in ADP lets you know the market's still interested in him, which means he's an asset that could increase in value rapidly because people are still diamond fisting him because we do not have much of a change here between 132 and 142. We even had a spike here in November. We're waiting on Deshaun Watson to come back, or he's coming back, or whenever this draft actually happened, 127 ADP, and prior to that, 133 ADP. So really, he's treading water where he's at, which is a good sign for a rookie who is not being productive during his rookie season. But we are getting some flashes of life. I want to go into that here in a bit. But looking here at the game log through the season, fantasy points, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games of over 5 fantasy points. Not huge. One game with more than 5 targets here. That was week 12 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A couple more with 5s. A couple 5ers there. Snap share is increasing here by the end of the year here. 52, 64, 63%. We got 5%er there, 68%, and a 73%. Remember, he had like a toe and thumb injury or whatever during this part of the season as well. And looking here at the snaps at the tail end of the season here, we still got some time to play, but things increased. 48 snaps, 50, 49, 51 here on this graph. This is from RotoViz, so things are looking good in this department. Again, going to the size adjusted athleticism, this is where people really started to discount him. And 4.65 40-yard dash, 89.4 size adjusted speed score, 35th percentile, 20th percentile burst score, 8th percentile agility score, 13th percentile catch radius. But the things you really want to look at as well, the things that could allow him to improve, look at his breakout age, 18.7, 94th percentile. Early breakout in college, he was breaking out right as a freshman, being productive, making highlights, making things happen. Also with the college dominator, 35.1%, 71 percentile in that range. He was productive, which means when it comes to watching him on tape, going back to that, he's a pretty good route runner. He's pretty efficient on the field, good hands, can make good contested plays, Going to the Cleveland offense here, looking at the depth chart, one thing you want to notice here, there are 3 wide receiver sets on 67.5% of the time, which is kind of low in this stage of the game, this era of the game. You're around like 70% or plus usually. And you know what? Earlier in the season with Brissett there, you're not going 3 wide receiver sets as much. You're a little more tight and heavy. You're running a lot more, and this team runs the ball a lot. You also got Amari Cooper. You got Donovan Peoples-Jones. And then David Bell. Look behind him, though. We don't have much behind him. Mike Woods, Jalen Darden, Demetri Felton, King Grant, Dalen Baldwin, Isaiah Weston, Anthony Schwartz, Mike Harley. So really not much on that depth chart. This tells us 2 things, that there's not much competition behind him. And again, since there's not much competition behind him, they might bring someone in via the draft. Think about this year's draft. It's a little bit softer in talent. So if they want to bring somebody that can compete with Bell or up to his caliber, they're going to have to pay up for that, because the talent's going to be zapped after the 2nd round. It's not going to go as deep into the 3rd round like it did in last year's draft. You might find a guy or 2, but it's going to be harder to find a talent that can press Bell unless you get someone in free agency. But the draft may not be as dangerous for Bell as what you think it could be, but they might be looking to improve this position because you got an older Amari Cooper, you got Donovan Peoples-Jones, which you don't have much invested in him, so the sunk cost isn't really there. Same thing with David Bell. He's only a 3rd rounder. Sunk cost isn't really there as well. You just drafted him, but you might want to move on. Who knows what you want to do, or add and see what happens, create more competition, whatever falls to you as well. You may not be going in looking to get a wide receiver, but you know what? Something falls to you. Who knows? But there's a lot of different ways this team could play this wide receiver depth chart going into next year. And then looking at his stats here on PFF, and one thing I want to hammer is right down here below, if you can see it, is he plays a lot in the slot. 72% of his snaps are in the slot. 225 total snaps. Only out wide 27.9% of the time. So he does get out wide a little bit, and it looks like he's a little bit diverse, but spends most of his time in the slot. The efficiency numbers aren't that great. 74 yards after the catch, 3.1 yards after catch for a reception. However, that's just limited targets, not much opportunity, and only ran, 291 routes on the season. So again, there is some opportunity for him to improve going forward. And I just want to go back to here and look at the snaps again. The increase here, not a huge increase, but we're increasing about 10 to 15 snaps per game after week 10. And the bars are getting higher, which is a good indication that he's just getting on the field more and more opportunities, getting trusted more. More opportunities means more chances of scoring fantasy points, and that could build going into next year. We got one more week in the season. The season's almost over, but again, 48, 50, 49, 51 snaps. That's good to see. We've also been dealing with an injury during this time span, so we're seeing some good increases in workload here. Some opportunities that a lot of people aren't really paying attention to. One thing you want to look at is the targets here. 5, 5, 5, week 10, 11, 12, and then dropped off here towards the end. But we were getting some opportunity there. That could come back next year. There's a good chance of that. Remember, he was hurt a lot during the offseason, during the preseason, and we needed him to have some opportunity during the start of the season. Started off slow, and as you can see, he had a slow start. Barely getting targeted for the first 8 weeks of the season. Then week 9 happened, and then boom, we started getting more volume, and then the snaps started to increase there as well. Looking at his value here on Keep Trade Cut, another place to look at dynasty value for wide receivers, all players in general, really. But we're seeing a steady trend line here. He's not dropping off. He's holding value. That's something you want to see. Let's look at it from a 3-month perspective. He's just treading water. That's a good thing to see. Typically, if a player's really doing bad, the market will dump them. And when the market dumps them, you see this trend line just goes down straight. That's when you want to run away, because enough people have seen enough of him playing bad that they're like, fuck it. We're out. We're done. We're selling our shares. I want everybody over this guy, but he's still treading water. And the adjacent players here, Terrace Marshall, Darius Slayton, Tyquan Thornton, Paris Campbell, very similar to the ADP at DLF. Also with the adjacent overall players as well, we got Zach Wilson there, who's probably really turning down. Jeffrey Wilson, Chuba Hubbard, Paris Campbell. So a lot going on here. But David Bell's got some interesting numbers here, and the value here with the ADP is something that I like. He's holding his value. He's keeping true to his ADP. We're going to see it dip a little bit more because the rookies are not in here yet. So we may see this drop overall to like 150, 155. That's natural attrition once you dump new rookies into the pool. But really, looking here at December, with the rookies out of it, he's held his value throughout the season while doing not that much out on the field, just getting about 5 targets a game. So that is something you want to look at, a player that is holding some value, because if something happens, they're going to jump in value rather quickly because they got a fan base behind him. I like David Bell. I liked him coming out of college, but real is real. The fantasy production hasn't been there, and when we get to year 2 or year 3, you're going to have to make some decisions. But right now, when we're talking about Dynasty fantasy football value, he is equivalent to buying a used PS2 game right now. You don't have to pay for him. Are you buying him? No. No one's buying him because he's free. All you have to do is just ask for him in a trade. Say, hey, we're doing this trade right now. Can you just throw in David Bell? You're more likely going to get it. A 140 ADP player or higher, you're just going to get those guys for free. Also, rookie draft season, once you're in your rookie drafts, once you get close to that, you might be able to get him on some ridiculous trades, on some ridiculous values. I'm talking about 3rd, 4th round rookie picks. Maybe to move back in a draft 3 or 4 spots, that might be able to get it done. He's going to be very liquid in a lot of drafts. People are going to look back on this rookie season. They're going to look back on these numbers. They're going to look back at this depth chart. They're going to look back at Amari Cooper. They're going to look back at what Deshaun Watson has been doing recently. They're going to be looking at the running game. They're going to be looking at this offense in general, and they're going to be thinking about, man, this guy might not going to be hitting any upside anytime soon. Might as well dip out on him. And you know what? As your back-end wide receiver, a guy like David Bell, a young 22-year-old prospect here who is just starting to blossom in the NFL, starting to get his feet wet, starting to get some experience, you may want to invest in that. It's not really even an investment, man. It's not. He's 142 ADP. His ADP's dropped about 15 points. 150 overall player. That's free. That's free. So if you're looking for a free player, it's him or Terrace Marshall. Him or Daniel Bellinger. Him or Isaiah Likely. Him or Dawson Knox, him or Kenny Pickett in 1 QB. Like, it's free. It's whatever it is. If you want him, go get him. It's not even buying him. When a player's this cheap, you just get them, and it is what it is. Especially at this price point, whatever happens, happens. If he busts, it's not even going to impact you because you've got no sunk cost invested at this point if you buy now. If you buy now and he hits, you're going to be in huge money. More than likely, baseline is he becomes a role player for the Browns, gets targeted here and there, has his big game a couple times a season. That's probably more than likely his base case, his more than likely outcome. But for Dynasty or in deeper Dynasty leagues, that might be something you want or something you need is a good role player in an offense where he might be getting some opportunity. And you know what? This offense, the game scripts for these offense in the next few years could be changing because these running backs aren't getting younger. You got Deshaun Watson. You paid in cash for him. You're going to want to spread the ball around a little bit more. And you may need to if something happens to Nick Chubb and you don't have any other running backs to fall back on. You don't know what's going to happen 2 years from now. And you got this 24-year-old wide receiver because that's where it would be at that point. So there's a lot that could happen in a couple years. Amari Cooper plays hurt a lot. He did that a lot at Dallas. He's done that a little bit this season. He's been banged up. He's 29 years old, so he is an older wide receiver, an older veteran. You don't know what will happen to him. Donovan Peoples-Jones has been good this season. He's been getting a lot of volume. He's been exceeding expectations, but still a late-round prospect. Former 5-star recruit, though, but David Bell's a player that could really sneak up on you. And at the price tag, you got a lot of jabronis, a lot of older vets, so you're really not taking much in opportunity cost to get him. So if you want him, just go get him. In trades, he's free. So if you want him, just go get him there. I wouldn't even consider him buying him. I wouldn't even consider him a sell or buy. He's just a guy that is so cheap right now. You just do what you want. It's pretty much getting a used PS2 game or whatever at a flea market. That's the price right now. And if you want it, you just buy it, you throw it in your bag, and you move on. That's what you got with David Bell. Let me know in the comments below what you thinking about. Are you in or are you out? Or are you kind of just treading water like he is? I want to hear about it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. I got a lot more Dynasty Fantasy Football action coming at you. But I want to thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.